Hiya, pals! Welcome to the Mouse Bytes podcast! Here we go!
Hello and welcome to Mouse Bytes, the show all about Disney video games, past and present. This is episode 22, and I'm your host, Jeff, and I'm joined, as always, by Clay. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
Doing great.
Nice.
Yeah, this weekend I got to do something I've wanted to do for years, and I got to go to Halloween Town.
What?
The actual filming location from the old Disney Channel original movie.
That's awesome.
But it's like about 45 minutes north of where I live, and they do these kind of like weekend festivities there every October, and finally got the chance to do it, so I'm pumped. It was an exciting weekend.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of it online. It looked really cool. I was actually pretty jealous, and I've actually never seen that movie, but I was still jealous, which is pretty telling, I would say.
I feel like the movie, even if people haven't seen it, it's pretty well known, and like even Debbie Reynolds like talks about it being one of her favorite roles, and she's a legend. So like, you know, it was interesting. Like the composer for it is Mark Mothersbaugh, the guy who did Rugrats and stuff that we knew growing up, The Sims 2, and then went on to do like the Lego Movie and stuff like that. So
nice. Yeah, I need to watch that one
because
I love Halloween movies, and my wife always talks about Halloween Town, and for whatever reason, I just never saw it. I don't know if my parents were like not a fan of it or what.
Yeah.
But that one and Hocus Pocus, I never really watched growing up.
Oh no, really?
I know it's unfortunate. I plan to watch Hocus Pocus this year. We got it on DVD, but for some reason I never watched it. But just seeing pictures of you guys being there, I was super jealous because it looked really cool. So
yeah. A little hokey, but it's an original Disney Channel movie. But if you get past that, it's fun, it's cute, whatever. But
it's funny you mentioned that because I watched a Disney Channel original movie not that long ago. A little movie called Brink.
Yeah, I rewatched that recently as well.
Dude, it's so weird.
I loved that movie as a kid, but it's pretty bad.
I was like, oh, dude, this is gonna be so cool. And then, like, as soon as it started, I was like, oh no, this is gonna be
Smart
so
House
cheesy.
recently too, and it was the same. It was like exactly the same. But speaking of October and things that came out in October or opened in October, a little theme park in Orlando, Florida called the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World opened on October 1st back in 1971. And so to celebrate that, we decided to cover a game called Adventures in the Magic Kingdom for the NES. Alrighty, so as always, we'll start off with what the heck is this game? Clay, tell us what the heck is this game?
All right, so if you're not familiar with this game, this is an 8-bit game that released where you play as a human character who walks around Disney World Park, Magic Kingdom. So the outside you are walking around the park, it's like a top-down view, and then once you go into specific rides and attractions, the game mode changes based on the different ones. And so there's some side scrollers, there's like a first person flyer and a racing game and stuff. So it varies a little bit based on which one you're in, but that's the gist of it in a nutshell. Is top down, go into a ride, and then you have varying forms of gameplay. So
that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, it sounds like something else we've reviewed as of recent.
Yeah. Disneyland Adventures, for anyone who didn't get that.
Oh, that's what you were talking about. I thought you were talking about Ratatouille.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's close.
Yeah. I don't know. Would you like me to tell some more information about this game?
Yeah, please do.
So, this game was developed by Capcom. This was still in the glory days of Capcom and Disney working together. This game released in the United States June of 1990. Don't have a specific date. Other than that, it released solely on the NES. It didn't ever come to any other console. Another thing I wanted to note, this game was released in 5 different regions, including the British Isles, North America, France, Scandinavia, and Australia, using 3 different retail covers. They're relatively similar, but just a little bit different. But one thing I noticed, and I guess I didn't really come up with an answer as to why, but this game never released in Japan, which I thought was strange. Especially since Japan has had its own Disney theme park since 1983. And in fact, this game at one point mentions, the Magic Kingdom in Japan or whatever, Tokyo, Disney. And so I thought that was weird that Capcom, a Japanese company, never released it in Japan when they had their own park. I just thought that was weird. I didn't know if you had any thoughts as to maybe why, but then like other places like Australia and Scandinavia got it, and I'm pretty sure they don't have Disney parks. So
yeah, I honestly do not know, and I had the same thought. I was like, as I was researching it a little bit, I couldn't for the life of me figure out why they wouldn't have released a version in Japan, considering it was Japanese developed. More often than not, the games, it doesn't have a ton of text, but it does have a lot of English text, and so you would have thought that would have been translated or whatever from a Japanese version or something, but no, it was all at least I would guess primarily English and then translated into like French. Scandinavia encompasses what, like Norway and
I have no idea.
Countries like that, Northern Europe, I think, but
probably.
Pardon our ignorance. But yeah, it's a very odd omission. Like you said, they had a Disney park already. Obviously, they had this not long-standing, but for the age of video games, like a pretty decent repertoire already with Japanese games releasing under the Capcom Nintendo partnership. So it was really odd that it didn't get a Japanese release. It seems like this is a game that would appeal to a Japanese audience.
Totally.
So who knows? I would love to find out more about that. If we ever do figure it out, we'll let you all know.
Yeah, I'll have to call up Capcom and ask them. I'm sure they'll tell me.
Yep. So next we'll jump into the history of the game as to if we have any nostalgia with it. I'll just start this one off. I have never played it until this episode, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. I enjoyed it. It's on the shorter side of things, but what's in there is quality. Not without its imperfections or lack of depth, but for what it is, it's an enjoyable little game, and I think it would be great for kids, maybe on the older end, maybe 10 plus as far as difficulty, but parents and kids could play it together and see some Disney stuff. I think it would have been enjoyable back in the early 90s for myself. How about you? Did you have any history with this one?
I don't think we had this game as a kid. We had a lot of NES games when I was younger, but I don't remember having this one, and so this probably wasn't a game I played until later on. I think just the fact that it starts with the word adventures, so it puts it kind of in the A category. Maybe that would be why I kind of came across it, because I was in college playing, ROMs, I would, start at the top and scroll my way down and see that one.
Totally.
I don't know, something about the whole premise of exploring the park maybe always kind of made me assume that it was going to be a lackluster game. And so I think I just initially, my first impression was I kind of wrote it off and was like, this isn't going to be good. It's just walking around. And so it wasn't until later that I actually put some time into it and got into some of the side-scrolling levels that I think I really realized, like, oh, this actually is better than I thought it would be, and had a lot more potential than I probably gave it credit for. So I had played this game prior to us reviewing it here. I've never beat this game, but I have spent a good amount of time with it and know it relatively well, I guess. Yeah, that's about it, I would say, for me, so no nostalgia or anything on this end. So
okay, fair enough. With that, we'll head on into our gameplay discussion as we do each and every episode. Alrighty, so gameplay discussion will include covering and analyzing visuals, audio, the gameplay difficulty, any sort of story, and then of course we conclude with our final thoughts. So we'll start off first with visuals. As we've mentioned earlier in the episode, it is an 8-bit game, so the visuals are, as such, not a hugely wide color palette or photorealistic representation of the Magic Kingdom, but overall I was not... I was happy with how the graphics looked in general. There's some sort of story element at the very beginning and larger character images in still scenes or mildly animated scenes where maybe they turn their head from side to side. Those all look pretty good, similar to some other Capcom large Mickey and Goofy and Donald sprites that we've seen. The representation of the Magic Kingdom itself is interesting, and also the castle on the title screen. So the castle on the box that, as we mentioned, there's 3 boxes are all similar, is the Walt Disney World castle, or possibly the Tokyo Disneyland castle, because those are the same architecture. But the castle on the title screen of the game, in-game, is the Disneyland castle, strangely, and then the representation of the park itself in the game is Disneyland. It's definitely Disneyland. No! The location, and it's not a huge deal or something that most people would notice, but like it's a Small Worlds location, Big Thunder Mountains location, and Space Mountains location are all where they would be at Disneyland rather than where they are at Magic Kingdom.
Come on, Capcom.
You know, yeah, exactly. Like what? Why? You know, this is way before the era of the internet, obviously, so research for them was probably hindered, and most of what they found was probably Disneyland, or just easiest to find was Disneyland information. Who knows? But that is what happened. The game sort of represents itself and talks about all 3 Magic Kingdoms being the Disneyland style parks. At the release of this game, Disneyland Paris had not even opened yet, so it really was just 3 theme parks in Florida, because Hollywood Studios had just opened, but just the one in Japan, the one in Disneyland, and then the 3 in Florida. So random, but anyway, the graphical style is overall I liked it. What is your thoughts on the graphics now that I've gone on that tangent?
Well, the first thing that's weird is like, why is the main character who we're playing as, why is he dressed up like a cowboy? You know?
Yeah, I was thinking not even cowboy, but like Adventureland adventurer, like a safari adventurer. Which I guess if it's adventures, maybe that's what they were going for, but then there's no Jungle Cruise level.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
You get to name him, but you only get to be a boy, so if you're a girl, you're kind of hosed.
Right.
It reminded me of Pokemon a little bit, where you can kind of name your character at the beginning, but and the visual walking around the map is similar-ish.
Yeah, I'd say so. Other than that, visually, I think they did a good job of making the park kind of pop. Lots of bright colors, decent amount of details. I mean, there's even things that you can see in the overworld that you can't even really, I think, access. Which I thought was interesting. Like it shows there's like a barbershop thing and a first aid symbol, ice cream,
all the main street shops.
Right, I think they're just trying to show you kind of what is available in those shops. But anyway, so I thought that was a cool little detail. They were trying to, even though it doesn't it just looks like there's items on the roof, but it works. I think these side-scrolling levels look really good, especially the Haunted Mansion one. I just love the character designs in those.
Yeah.
I think the little bad guys and stuff that you're fighting or whatever look really cool. They put in some fun little effects, like when you walk past the mirrors, you see your reflection, but then at one point there's like a ghoul's reflection instead of your own, and so
great callback to the ride itself.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And I just think they kind of went the extra mile to make it visually look cool. There's a lot of like thunder and lightning in that level, and I don't know. So I think that was really cool. The top-down stuff's okay, and some of the cutscene images, like you mentioned earlier, look rather good for an NES game, and for whatever reason, Capcom I think did a pretty good job with cutscenes on the NES in particular. I think they did a pretty good job. So at least for what they were given, but other than that, everything else looks pretty great. We get a couple sprites of Pete at one point, which is cool.
Yeah.
Other than that,
there's a 3D effect in the Space Mountain one.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
kinda cool.
yeah.
It's really just a bunch of dots moving on screen, which obviously is not hardware intensive, but it kind of goes left and right and up and down or whatever, and it looks pretty cool.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I remember. I think I've heard some people say when they were kids and they would play this game that when they get to that part, it would always like blow their mind that the effects of it and stuff, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, it would have blown my mind as a kid for sure, especially in 1990.
Yeah, totally. I think that was there was other games that did that, but not bad for it just being like a level in the game. Like it felt pretty good.
Yeah.
There's other little things I could mention here and there, but I don't know. Relatively, for the most part, it's a decent looking game. Nothing that was too oddly out of place. There's only one part where Mickey in the opening cutscene looks straight at the camera.
Yep.
And it kind of
his eyes are off.
Yeah, it just does not work, and I'm like, ugh.
Had the exact same thought.
Other than that, actually not bad for an NES game. So.
Yep, agreed. Alrighty. Next, we'll touch on the audio. So the title screen has. Oh God, what song is playing on the title screen? Is it "When You Wish Upon a Star" or is it something else?
I think it's the Mickey Mouse Club. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's got that, and I was like, oh, this is great. This means they're going to be using the park music and other stuff. No. That's the only song that was recognizable. The rest is original, as Capcom pretty much has shown us that that's what they're going to do. None of it bad, I don't think. I didn't really get annoyed by any of the music in the game. I think there's overworld music, and then each level has its own music, so nothing to complain about there. Great little tunes, 8-bit Capcom music.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the best way to put it. So
sound effects were good overall. I found it odd that the sound to collect the candles, which are just ammo in the Haunted Mansion, it just seemed overdone. It seemed like you were winning or finding a rare collectible.
Right.
Because it played every single time you found something. It was like, I can't remember the sound right off the top of my head, but it was like more than what it needed to be, I think, which is a very minor qualm with the game. I think everything else was fine.
Yeah.
Maybe the engine in Autopia was a little annoying.
Yeah.
But, it kind of just faded into the background and I got over it.
Yeah, and NES games are kind of notorious for like having sound effects when you attack or jump, and after a while, you either have the brain capacity to like block it out, or
Right.
it just drives you nuts the entire time. So
yeah, pretty much that. And I didn't get to do the wife test on this one. I didn't play it with her around, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's always been a good measuring stick for both of us, but I only played it with headphones on an emulator, so. Yeah, I don't know. Did you have anything else audio-wise that you noted?
No, I think the opening song was really good. That was that was the only one that really
Definitely the highlight.
yeah, and I mean, because it's familiar to us.
Exactly.
This, the Haunted Mansion song is spooky. The train level, is kind of got a
Western-y.
yeehaw, hootenanny feel to it, and it works. So it's good. I think using mostly original music on this was a good call. I know in the past we've reviewed games, I'm like, why don't you use other things? But I don't know. In this one, for the most part, I can understand, because at the time, other than like Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me or whatever, like and I guess Haunted Mansion had its own, but I don't know if even in like what it would have been in 1990, if that was like super recognizable. I don't know, maybe it was, but
hard to say.
Outside of the ride,
those Disney sing-along VHSs existed by then, so
did they though?
I think.
I watched them in the 90s, but I don't know.
Yeah, I had the Grim Grinning Ghost one really close to this. It might have been like 93.
Okay.
So maybe not.
See, because that's where my head goes too, is that exact version. And I'm like, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't really know it that well, because I've only ridden the ride, once every 3 or 4 years. But
yeah, it does depend on your level of park geekiness,
Right, totally.
Like hardcore park fans obviously know all that music very well, but yeah, you're right. A casual Disney fan who maybe had been to the parks once but mostly just seen the movies may not have known them. So that's true. That's very, very interesting observation, because for me it's like I knew them well, but for you it's not such a big missing piece.
Right. So
Fair enough. Alrighty, I think we can move into gameplay and difficulty. Do you want to kick us off with that?
yeah, so I can kind of try to explain, I guess, the overall objective here. Basically, the player must complete 5 different stages modeled after the rides in Disney parks, as well as a trivia quest in order to retrieve the set of keys. The player chooses which stage to play. Basically, you can go in any order, which is kind of nice.
I like that a lot, yep.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you've got some choices. There isn't really one right, like, it's not like Mega Man where there's like a
optimal path. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's just however you want to do it. I typically go straight for the trivia thing, and then I move my way through the other ones.
Nice.
But it's nice that they don't like head here first and do this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I thought that was kind of cool. The game features 2 vehicle stages with a top-down perspective. One of the stages is based on the Autopia ride, which we've mentioned. It's a driving game where you must avoid various obstacles in a race against a villainous Panhandle Pete. Excuse me. The second one, based on Big Thunder Mountain, has the player controlling a train on a track and having to choose the right path. I hate that level.
Yeah, that level's annoying.
Not very fun. There's also 2 side-scrolling stages, as we mentioned. In the Haunted Mansion one, the player must defeat ghosts by throwing candles at them to retrieve one of the keys. The other stage being the Pirates of the Caribbean, where you must rescue 6 villagers from pirates who have raided an island. Following that is Space
Real
Mountain.
Quick, can I comment on what I appreciated on the Haunted Mansion stage?
Sure.
I love that it starts you outside the mansion in the graveyard or whatever, and then moves you into essentially it goes through the ride backwards, which I thought was fascinating because it starts you in that mirror room, like you said, where you kind of see yourself in the first mirror, you see a ghost in the second mirror, and then you see yourself in the third mirror again.
Right.
One thing to note when you're out in the graveyard at the beginning, you're following this ghost that just kind of scrolls from left to right, and you follow him into the mansion. So it doesn't quite go so far as to setting up any sort of story, but you essentially follow him into the mansion, and then you actually fight him as the final boss. And I thought that was really cool to kind of show him at the beginning. He disappears, you play through the level, and then you fight him as a boss at the end. I thought that was clever.
Yeah, and it's funny because you can throw candles at him, and he makes a sound, but you can't kill him at the beginning. And so you're like, what the heck was that all about?
Yeah. I think that's maybe the most brilliant game design thing in this game. I wish that much attention to detail had maybe gone into the other ones, and I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but I was impressed by it.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great point.
And Pirates also has like the village on fire, just like the ride kind of.
Right.
So I thought that was a nice touch as well.
Yeah, and I thought the fire part was actually pretty cool. It looked neat.
Good effects.
Yeah. Space Mountain, like we mentioned earlier, is a first-person stage where you're on a spaceship with a mission to reach a certain star, maneuvering through asteroids while shooting enemy ships with a phaser. Yeah, like I said, I didn't much care for that one. It's a very quick reaction thing. Kind of reminds me of like
just quick time events, yeah.
Right, and kind of had like a Dragon's Lair feel to it, where up, down, A, B. The button commands were a little confusing on that. Like half the time I was like,
initially.
Because at first I couldn't tell what
left and right button, so A and B.
Right.
But not the arrow ones, like the actual avoiding the meteor things is
right.
Or shooting them.
But then even for a while there, I was like, what am I supposed to do? Because there's a couple different like monitors or whatever on the spaceship, I guess. And so the one at the top tells you what to, input. But at first I don't know what I was looking at.
I think
but
the one at the top shows your progress from A to E.
Oh, okay.
And
so that's what was confusing me.
The buttons appear either a button on the left or a button on the right, and that implies A or B. But then it also does arrows left or right to avoid. So it's not explained at all. I'm wondering if having the user manual for all of these would help, because like with Autopia, I had no idea you like hold A, but then you can actually shift gears using up and down.
Right.
Didn't figure that out for a while, and I was going super slow because I just pushed A, and then you can let go of A and you still keep going. So it's like you activate, but then you have to keep holding A to shift gears, and it's more complex than it looks, and it's not very intuitive, but it offers a better layer of control once you figure it out. And I
Yeah.
think that might be the case for Space Mountain.
Yeah, and that was why I was confused because I kept seeing A at the top, and I was
Right.
like, I'm pressing A, and I keep dying. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, press the
misleading.
arrows. Yeah.
Yeah, but that eventually goes all the way to E when you reach Sector E, which I think is a tie into the Q of Space Mountain, where it's like the different sectors of the galaxy. But not 100% sure on that, but I think that's what it is. Again, more of the hardcore Disney fans might pick up on that, and then it's just confusing otherwise.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
Also worth noting, in all these levels, you have hearts.
Yeah.
Obviously that can tell you how much life you have, and then at any point in these levels, I think all of them, I can't remember. You can hit pause or select to bring up a menu.
Oh yeah.
Which displays your current lives, how much time you have left in the level. Which that's another thing. The levels are timed, which I didn't know the first time I played this. And I was taking my time through the ghost level, and all of a sudden I ran out of time, and I was just like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I had no idea because they don't put it on the main
it's
screen.
not displayed. No.
Anyway, so also in the select menu, you have a place where you can spend the stars that you've collected in each level, which gives you the opportunity to purchase additional lives. You can become invincible, you can freeze enemies, or you can get a 1-up. So by life up, I mean you get additional hearts.
Hit points.
Points, yeah.
I really like that design. I think that's an interesting thing that I don't recall other games ever doing at the time. Not sure. I like it. I thought it was clever.
Totally.
Good use of collectibles, because otherwise most games collectibles are for points and useless, and it's like, why am I doing this? But this, it's like, it's currency, and you can use it in a strategic way that benefits the way you play, or in what way you suck.
Well, yeah, and I know certain levels probably are more generous with how many stars you get, so there could be an optimal route if you knew.
True,
I go to this level first because it gives me a bunch of stars up front so that I can purchase, additional whatever. So literally at any point you could be down to 1 heart. You can hit select, bring up the menu, buy 2 more hearts, and then unpause it and have full health. And so that wasn't something I originally knew about the game when I played through it. I didn't realize it because you just press start and it just pauses the game. But this, and so once I figured this out, I was like, oh, this makes it a little bit easier, or I don't know, maybe actually just made it feel a little more fair to me, I guess.
It's another thing where I think I would bet money that having the manual for this game makes it
definitely
10 times better. But
I totally agree. Anyway, I kind of raced through, kind of went through some of those rides really quickly. So I didn't know if you had any other comments on, the car one or the train one. I already kind of mentioned I didn't really much care for the
train one kind of becomes trial and error, and you can speed up and slow down and avoid rocks, and you can take the wrong path. It just tells you at the beginning, get to station 4, and you don't really know what that means. I feel like it's maybe the least developed one. The Autopia one is pretty good and forgiving. Like, the car's at the bottom of the screen, so you have enough reaction time to see what's coming. It seemed like there was enough it was generous enough with time that you can mess up, get bumped, run into walls. One thing I didn't like is that you come to a dead stop when you hit a wall. That's a little annoying. And then there's one part where there's an extending bridge, and if you don't know right away, you just drive off and die.
Yeah, you have to stop and wait for it.
What? But once you figure that stuff out, it's not too bad, and it's pretty, you don't have to beat the other cars. They're kind of just obstacles. As long as you finish before the timer runs out, you'll win. So there's things like that where there's a little bit of trial and error or figuring out stuff. But I felt like the jumps, for example, in Autopia, there's some parts where you're jumping over danger things where if you miss the platform, you die. But it gives you enough time to react. You don't ever feel like it was unfair with this platform. I just didn't know it was coming, and I had to memorize it. You don't feel that. I felt like a little bit more. You need to memorize it in the Big Thunder Mountain one. But,
right.
And then again, the controls are not well explained in the Space Mountain one. So if you don't figure that out right away, it's frustrating. Like you said, you think you need to just push A, and half the time it'll work, and half the time it won't. And that's because it's at the bottom of the screen. It's showing left button, right button to shoot your lasers or whatever.
Yeah.
So little things like that are not well explained. The game doesn't give you much direction. And certain levels, like, or in the overworld map, it looks like It's a Small World would be a level because it has an entrance, but you can't go into it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So a little bit of confusion there, because I think that's one of the few ride buildings that is on the map that isn't a level. I think the rest of them are actually all levels. You know, like I don't think there's rides on there that aren't levels. So random and odd, but I don't know. Yeah, in general, other than that, I think we pretty much covered it just in my commentary and your explanations. So what about that last objective that we talked about?
So the last one is the trivia game, which is available to play at any time. Several children around the park ask the player questions about Disney films and characters, and parks, I guess, as well. If these are answered correctly, the children will reveal the location of the final silver key, which has been taken by Pluto. And so you do some fetch questing back and forth to different characters. And I know you got a lot of thoughts on this one, Jeff. I guess the only thing I want to say before I hand it over to you is I don't know. It's a cool mechanic. I like it. I think trivia is cool. It's definitely dated. There's a lot of stuff they ask now that maybe was more known back then, but maybe not so much now.
Maybe, but maybe not, yeah.
Yeah, even then it still feels a little... but the thing that always threw me off is when you got a question right, it would go bang, bang. And I was just like, to me, that sounds like womp, womp. And I'm like, did I get it right? Like, that sound does not sound like you got it to me. I don't know. And so I was always like, is that the good sound or the bad sound? So I thought that was it didn't seem like it fully was clear. But other than that, I don't know. I like this part. I was actually surprised at how many questions there are. Jeff, what did you think of this trivia?
Yeah, I share most of those sentiments. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was clever. The questions that are in there are worded well and not too ambiguous. There, like you said, there's some stuff that it's like, I don't know how anyone would know that. Even in, the 90s, it's like there's questions about stuff from the 50s that it's like in the 90s there wasn't really, obviously no YouTube in history, but it's like, I don't know how anybody would have known because there wasn't even reruns of that stuff at the time. There wasn't the Disney Channel, Vault Disney and stuff like that.
Right.
That kind of came later 90s. So it's like, where was Davy Crockett born? Like, if you don't know that song or didn't watch it back when it was more popular, maybe in the 50s and 60s, I don't know that many kids in the 90s would have ever known that.
Right.
Per se, or like, what was the ranch in the Mickey Mouse Club called? It's like, don't know anybody would know that one either. So, it's hit or miss. There's a lot of random stuff. Like Donald's middle name. Nobody would have known that in 1990.
Yeah.
I was taught it at some point in my Disney parks training because it was mentioned probably sometime in the 30s, but like nobody would know that.
Yeah, exactly. Thankfully, there are at least multiple choice. I think there was like three options
choices per.
And so that helped a little bit, but even still, I would get some wrong. But luckily, it's not too like punishing. If you get it wrong, you just walk away and then turn right back around, come back, and they ask you a different one. And there's a nice big amount of them that you could play through this game many times and still continue to get asked.
I appreciate that
questions.
A lot. Yeah. That you can't just memorize them all and just speed run it. Like, you just need to learn it.
In fact,
interesting.
I found a list of all of the questions online.
Oh boy.
And instead of making Jeff answer all of them, I just picked a few of them.
Okay.
Some I think you'll get, and maybe some you won't get.
Okay.
And so no pressure. I'm not giving you the multiple choice because it didn't have it. It just gave me the answers. So, yeah. All right. So I'm going to run through a couple of these, see how well Jeff does, and then we'll finish up the show here. First one. What year did Disneyland first open?
1955.
Bingo. What year did the Mickey Mouse comic begin?
Oh, man. I'm going to say that would have been 1930.
Nailed it, dude.
Dang.
Nice.
Okay, that was a guess. That was a shot in the dark.
That was great. What was the first Mickey Mouse cartoon ever created?
That first one ever created, I'm curious what the answer is going to be. The first one ever created was Plain Crazy in July of 1928, but the first one released was Steamboat Willie in November of 1928.
They have it here as Plain Crazy.
Okay.
So.
Yep. Good. I'm glad that they did the research on that.
Yes. What actress won Best Actress in a Disney film?
I would say Julie Andrews for Mary Poppins.
Nice. You're slaying them, dude. When is Mickey Mouse's birthday?
November 18th, 1928.
Bingo. What is the name of the king in Alice in Wonderland?
I believe he's just Little King.
Little King is correct. What is the name of Hook's ship in Peter Pan?
The Jolly Roger.
This says it doesn't have one.
What the heck?
That's what I was saying. Because I had that one in the game and I was like, Jolly Roger. And then it was like, nope. And I was like, what?
Oh, man. I wonder if that's in the book or if I'm just knowing that from like watching Once Upon a Time.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
What is the name of the bulldog always chasing Pluto?
I don't know that one.
His name is Butch.
Dang. Okay.
You were doing good.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm missing 2 in a row. It's bad.
That's okay. When Goofy first appeared, he had another name.
Dippy Dog.
Dippy Dog is correct. What is the name of Disneyland's riverboat?
In Disneyland, it's the Mark Twain.
Correct. Which Winnie the Pooh character was once named Edward?
Ooh, I would guess Christopher Robin?
Nope.
Ouch. I don't know.
Winnie the Pooh, apparently.
No way. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
That's deep, man. Like, I don't know anybody that would know that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
What is Cinderella's last name?
Ooh, Tremaine.
Yep. And then the last one I have. What was the first Academy Award winning cartoon? I assume from Disney.
Flowers and Trees.
Winna winna chicken dinner.
Nice.
You did pretty good, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
impressive.
fun. Those are hard, man. Like I don't expect many people to know most of those, and I don't say that like to be arrogant or cocky. It's like I know them because I'm obsessed, and I worked in the parks and learned some of them just by happenstance. So I don't know that many people would know most of those.
Right. Yeah. So like we said, it's a cool thing, but I don't know, it's tough. I have a Disney trivia board game from like the 90s that I like to pull out every now and then, and like half of the questions on those are like pertain to like TV shows and live action stuff, and it's like half of it are like nobody wants to talk about, like they just don't age well, but then the movies obviously have aged great because they're still, they do so well now, and so
the animated ones for sure,
right, and so more so the animated ones, and so I feel like if more of these trivia things would just focus on the animated movies, they would age better because those movies are so timeless.
Right, and still released now, whereas most of the other stuff is not. Right,
and then even the parks, like I would argue the parks age well, but I mean, they get rid of things, maybe not the big pinnacle, ones, but over time, certain things, even in the parks, work their way out. So
yeah, the best thing for those is like, when did this open, or what was this, or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's. I had that Disney trivia game, or I had a Disney trivia game growing up as well, and it's like when you get questions like, "Who is the director of The Happiest Millionaire?" Like, I don't know. Who's the actor in The Happiest Millionaire? I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah. Anyway, we should probably move on. Last thing we were gonna hit on is the story. Jeff, do you want to explain the story?
Well. For what the story is. The story is set up in that cutscene at the beginning and then concluded at the end, but essentially puts the player as a nameless main character whom you get to enter a name for. As we mentioned, he's dressed in little adventure Western gear. Goofy has left the golden key for the castle inside, for the castle gate inside the castle. And Mickey Mouse asks that the player helps find 6 silver keys that can open the castle to allow the Disney parade to begin. After completing the tasks, Mickey congratulates the player and the parade begins to conclude the game. And I don't think you even really get to see the parade. I think you just see the characters like waving, but
right. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it might have been a cool, cute little cutscene if it would have been like a well-known parade, but like you said, Disney things, parades, everything changes constantly. Really, the only long-running parade at Disney has ever been the Main Street Electrical Parade. But
yeah,
so that's the premise, and then it just sets you free in the park. It puts you pretty much the entrance, but not quite inside the train station in Town Square is where you start, and doesn't give you much else direction. So again, I think if you had the instruction booklet, it'd probably tell you which rides were the games and the buttons to push to play them. But I don't know that for sure. I would guess. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, the final cut scene is pretty anticlimactic, but there's been games that we've reviewed on here that were much worse.
Agreed.
At least this one, it shows Mickey and he's like conducting the band.
Oh, that's right.
He has a little bit of dialogue, and then it goes to the final shot, which is this render of the boy that you're playing as, which I think this is the only time you actually see him in this render, and he's standing there with Mickey and Pluto and Donald from earlier, and it just says end, E-N-D, end, and that's it, and it's over.
That's it.
But like I said, I don't remember what game it was that we played, but the ending was it was it one of the Game Boy games maybe?
There was like the Emperor's New Groove Game Boy kind of just ended weird.
Right, yeah.
Or something, but yeah, I feel like there might have been another NES one, but
yeah.
Either way, you're right. There's been others that have been far worse than this. This kind of wraps it up a little bit.
Yeah, he got a little closure at least. So
yeah.
But
alrighty. Well, with that, let's move right over to final thoughts, and I'll let you go ahead and start off with yours.
Okay. I don't know. I'm conflicted on this one. I can't tell if I hate it or if I like it. The last time I played through this, when I was capturing footage for this episode, I ended kind of frustrated with it, and I haven't beat it, but I probably just need to learn it better and keep playing it. If I was a kid in the 90s playing this, I probably would have liked it because I probably would eventually have gotten really good at it. And like you mentioned, it is a shorter game. And so if you just spent the time to kind of learn the levels, you could probably beat this whole game relatively quickly. Maybe, obviously in one sitting or whatever. And just
a long play that was 20 minutes. So
exactly. And so just like learning the mechanics of everything, knowing, this is where you have to look and this is where you put this. Once you figure out some of those things, you can really fly through this game. So I would have loved that as a kid because every kid loves being able to sit down and beat a whole game in one sitting. At least I did. And so, but even now playing as an adult, it's a little frustrating when you don't exactly know what's going on. I think the standout level in this game is the Haunted Mansion. In my opinion, it's probably my favorite.
I would agree.
Honestly, I would just rather have had an entire Haunted Mansion NES side-scrolling game that was like this, but just had more levels. At that point, it would be like a kid's version of Ghouls and Ghosts or whatever that game's called, where you're going through, maybe not as punishing. But I also just really like that that style, or just do more of the side-scrolling levels and just have it level 1 you're going through the pirates, and then the next one you're in this, and I don't know. I think that is the standout mechanic. I think the jumping mechanic on it works really well. Granted, I'm a big platformer fan, so I just kind of prefer platformers in general. But I would love if we had just gotten rid of the racing ones and done more platforming levels. But you could also argue that it adds a nice variety. So like I said, I'm conflicted. I don't know what I think, but I do think this is an overlooked game. I don't think that it gets as much recognition, and maybe that's because it's short or because the box art has a castle on it, and so maybe you don't think that it
looks
would
like a
have
cash grab advertisement for the parks.
Yeah, and so maybe I've heard a lot of people say it was overrated, and it is Capcom. But when you compare it against other Capcom Disney games, it's going to be at the low end of the list because it's hard to top those games. So I don't necessarily even think that it's a negative thing to say it's my least favorite Capcom NES game because the other ones are just so good. So I don't know how I feel about this game. What about you, Jeff?
Interesting. No, you brought up some great points about it. I really enjoyed it for what it was. Obviously not having any sort of nostalgia for it. I just looked at it purely objectively, which I'm not saying that you didn't. It's just that I had literally no knowledge of it at all. So I didn't know what to expect from it. And I was pleased that it reminded me so much of Disneyland Adventures, which I played first. And so it was like, oh, okay, I can see the inspiration, whether or not it was intentional. It's like, okay, you're going through the parks and you enter the rides, and there's like literally a little video game within a video game based on that attraction. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I appreciate that they only used original park ride like elements or whatever IP. So it's not like you're going through Snow White's Scary Adventure or Peter Pan or like the stuff that's based on movies. You're going through original rides like Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion and Space Mountain, etc. So I appreciate that they did that and stuck with just the parks to kind of focus more on the parks.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'd love to know kind of where this came from, whose idea it was and why, whether it was pitched from Disney as a marketing thing and maybe that's why it was only released in Americas. Because Tokyo Disneyland is a third-party owned park, it's not their marketing and all that is not overseen by the Walt Disney Company per se. It's a franchise.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe that's even better explanation as to why it exists and why it wasn't released in Japan. Who knows?
Totally. Yeah.
That just popped in my head literally as I was saying this. I didn't even prepare that, but
nice.
Who knows? Maybe it was that. But overall, I agree with you. I think it would have done better to have more of those side-scrolling, even if they'd just done more levels within the game. Like 5 is short, and 5 shortish levels. Like none of them are long, which is too bad because again, by 1990, Capcom was already doing great 2D platformers. So we know that they were fully capable, and it shows in those two, the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean rides. So yeah, if they could have added in another ride somewhere. I'm trying to think what other original rides there would have been to base anything off of, and there's not many.
Yeah.
If you think back on it and what was available in the parks at the time, and what's not, they could have done a Matterhorn. They could have done rockets. What do you call the rockets that go in circles in Tomorrowland? Not a whole lot of original stuff, and that would have been too similar to Space Mountain. So maybe they just kind of did the best with what they had that wasn't a IP. So overall I like the game. I enjoyed it. I agree that it could have been fleshed out a little more, but it's not a bad game. So like you said, the lowest quality of the Capcom games are still great quality. So
totally
back in the NES days. Same cannot be said for the GameCube. But we'll see if we'll get to that or not, the Mickey game on the GameCube in the future or not.
Oh, it's on the schedule, dude.
Oh good. Yeah, I couldn't remember. So yeah, anyway, that pretty much sums it up. I think with that, we can go ahead and close off the episode. So
yeah.
As always, thank you everyone for joining us. If you want to get all our info as soon as it happens, follow us on Twitter at mouse_bytes, bytes with a Y. And you can always find us on www.thenintendovillage.com or The Nintendo Village. Not sure what the proper pronunciation is there. And you can find links to all of our episodes there, as well as our other great shows, reviews, other content based around Nintendo. All our episodes are on their Nintendo Village YouTube. So if you'd like to see gameplay to accompany each episode, you can watch us there. And join us next time as we continue our October shenanigans with the Nightmare Before Christmas, the Pumpkin King.
Yes.
With that, have a great day and go visit the parks.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and visit thenintendovillage.com, your home for everything Nintendo.